This video and all of its contents, including any opinions expressed by the narrator, are strictly for entertainment purposes only and is not intended in any way as a substitute for professional services and consultation from a licensed therapist, doctor, attorney, or other licensed professional service provider. Each person must make their own life decisions, and those decisions are theirs. Welcome back to Find Your Alpha, one of the fastest growing men's channels on YouTube. And we've got another great story for you this week, and there's the title right on your screen. My newlywed wife had an affair. She got pregnant, then tried to pass the baby off on me. Now let's get into this story. But before we do, I wanted to cover the moral of the story. And actually, there were three key points that I pulled out of today's story. The first one: most women view nice guys as being weak and take them for granted. Not only do they take them for granted, but they take advantage of them. I really think women view nice guys as almost like their father, kind of a father figure, meaning they can do anything they want, and that guy's always going to be there to love them because this guy worships the ground they walk on. Don't be a nice guy. Next, don't dip your stick in crazy. You're going to see from this story, this woman is either crazy or a psycho or a combination of both. And then finally, if she cheats on you, end the relationship immediately. Don't second guess yourself. Just call it quits and move forward. Now, let's get to the story. And this story dates back to March of 2019. He starts off and he says, "Hey folks, I'd like to get your input on a current issue that's upended my life. I, a 27-year-old male, have been married to my wife, a 25-year-old female, for a little over 6 months now. For this post, I'll refer to us as Mary and Marvin. Sounds like a Motown duo here. We've been together for a total of 4 years after meeting at a wedding reception that she nearly didn't attend. She came to the wedding as a last-minute plus one with a friend of hers who was part of the bridal party. I noticed she was hanging out by herself while the bridal party was taking pictures. So I took the initiative to go over and talk to her. And I gave him a thumbs up for that because he shot his shot. Anytime you see a woman that you're interested in, you need to take the initiative just like this guy did. We hit it off immediately, started dating, fell in love, and moved in together a year later. Now I listed that as a mistake because I think he moved too fast. Everyone thought we were a perfect couple. Mary works for a large company in a staff position, and I work at the HQ, at the headquarters of a company in a professional position. I'm not going to get any more specific than that to protect our privacy. Our entire relationship has been a dream, and I look forward to getting up every day. However, a few days ago, my perfect marriage got broken into a million pieces. Let's find out what happened. It was a Thursday, and I came home at the normal time, around 5:30. When I got there, Mary was already home, and she was dressed in a mini skirt and had an apron on. Now, I gave that a big thumbs up because, ladies, if you want to impress your man, that's how you dress when he comes home. You got a mini skirt on, you got an apron on. I'm guessing that this girl is good looking. This guy's getting the best of both worlds. I was surprised and delighted to see her, as she normally doesn't get home until 6 o'clock. She greeted me at the door and gave me a big kiss and a hug and said she got off work early to cook me my favorite dinner. She also had stopped and got our favorite wine and a cheesecake we both love. Mary said she wanted to spoil her husband to show me how much she loved me. I was so worked up that I immediately carried her into the bedroom and we had a heated session before dinner. When we finally ate, she sat on my lap and we hugged and kissed between taking bites and drinks. Now, so far, this is sounding great. After we finished dinner, she got up and stood in front of me, pressing her lower chest and stomach into my face. I wasn't sure what she was going for, but I played along. She then told me to look up at her and said, "We're pregnant." I was thrilled. I stood up, picked her up, and spun her around. We were both laughing and I'll admit crying with joy as we had been trying since our wedding night. So he had been trying to get her pregnant since their wedding night. We stacked the dishwasher and were sitting eating our cheesecake when I suggested we get our parents on a three-way call and break the news to them at the same time. Mary was all for it. So we used her phone on speaker and let them both know the wonderful news. Our parents were so excited for us and for themselves, as this would be the first grandchild for both sets of parents. After that, we sat on the couch cuddling and talking about preparing for the baby. I felt so good, I can't describe it. Then things went down real fast. Mary got up to go to the bathroom, and when she came back, she had an envelope in her hand, and she handed it to me. She asked me not to be mad at her. I told her, how could I be mad? She just made me the happiest man in the world. When I opened the envelope, it was a 2-page handwritten letter from Mary to me. She started out stating, "Dear Marvin, you know I love you more than life," followed by a host of just about every other nice thing a woman could say about her husband. Then she drops the bomb on me. She said that on 2 successive days just before Christmas, she had relations with a man from her company. She continued on saying it was the worst mistake of her life, and she will do everything to make it up to me for the rest of her life. Of course, I was in disbelief at this point and asked her, "What's this?" She just looked at me with tears running down her face and said she was so sorry. I said, "Are you serious?" She said yes and burst out crying again, saying she was really sorry. I asked her who the guy was, and she refused to answer, saying it didn't matter since it was over and it would never happen again. I asked her again to tell me and she refused. So I got up and headed to the bedroom and started packing. Now I listed this as a big red flag because not only did she cheat, which is a relationship ending situation, but she's also not willing to tell you who she cheated with. Man, that is just totally unacceptable. She came in sobbing, trying to stop me, but I kept on. Not only did I pack clothes, I packed some of my personal belongings, as cheating is a deal breaker for me. Thumbs up there, guy, because cheating should be a deal breaker for every man. As I walked to the door of our apartment, she was on the floor, holding onto my left leg, and I just kept walking slowly, gently pulling her along. When I got to the door and opened it, she let go and got up as there was a guy coming down the hall that I said hello to when I opened the door. After that, I went straight to my car and drove 20 miles away and got a hotel for the night. On the way, I called my brother, who lives nearby, and told him what happened, and he couldn't believe it. He told me, there's no coming back from this. I told him I wasn't sure, as I was really just destroyed right now and didn't want to think about it. He wanted me to come to his house, but I said I wasn't up to driving, so he insisted on coming over to the hotel to talk to me. The first question my brother asked me is whether the child was mine. I just said, "Oh man, I didn't think about that." "Really, OP, you didn't think about that? That's the first thing I thought about as soon as I read this story. Come on, guy." My self-worth went through the floor and I just started raging, and my brother let me get it all out. After I settled down, my brother then told me, "You need to formulate a game plan on how you're going to handle this situation. I will help you." I gave that a big thumbs up because this brother is obviously a strong man, and this guy, the OP, he needs a strong man at this point in his life. I told my brother I wanted to find a way to repair the marriage. No, 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 big mistake. But he talked sense into me, thankfully. He told me I had a unique opportunity to walk away unscathed, as the marriage could be annulled. He reminded me of what happened to one of our neighbors when we were growing up. In that situation, the guy cheated on his wife 3 months into the marriage, and the wife was granted an annulment. At the end of our conversation, I still felt like crap, but I had a game plan of what I had to do next. The following day was Friday, and I had opted to work 4 10-hour days last week, which entitled me to take Friday off. I spent the day scouting attorneys and got appointments with 3 firms. Throughout the day, Mary called and texted me nonstop. She didn't go to work, and her voice sounded frantic. I ignored her, but I did call her parents and my parents to explain the entire situation. I also called her best friend and canceled the double date we had scheduled with her and her boyfriend Friday night. I probably shouldn't have told everyone our personal business, but I was really angry and vengeful at that point. No, you should tell everyone about the affair, because if you don't, then that's going to give her the opportunity to go out there and spin a story. And as you're going to see later on, that's exactly what she does. Later that afternoon, my sister-in-law called saying Mary has been calling her all day. She said she drove to their house twice to check if I was there. It's a 30-minute drive away, so that tells you just how frantic she was. My sister-in-law told her I wasn't there. She also told Mary they knew where I was but couldn't tell her. The messages from my wife were basically ramblings mixed with frantic pleading through sobs. She was saying all the things you'd expect a woman in her position to say. Friday evening, I took my brother, sister-in-law, and parents out to a nice restaurant. It was a celebration dinner of sorts for my brother and sister-in-law, as their 10th anniversary was coming up next week. We had a nice time, but the topic during most of the meal centered around Mary and me. All of them thought it best for me to get an annulment, move on, and start over. I wasn't so sure though. Come on, guy, this woman cheated on you and likely got pregnant with another guy, and you're not sure? What are you thinking? They suggested I meet with Mary tomorrow to tell her. My sister-in-law also said I needed to demand a prenatal paternity test to determine the father of her baby. I didn't know these tests were possible. Now, this is like the second or third story, maybe it's the fourth story that I've done where these prenatal paternity tests were brought up and actually were pursued. And I think that's great, because I think in all questionable situations, these tests are really key. They can be done before the child's born. They're totally non-invasive. It's just a blood draw from the mother and a cheek swab of the father, and then they compare the DNA of the two, and they can determine if you're the father or not. So I think it's great that these tests are out there now and they're getting more traction. I told them if the baby is mine, I will love it and be the best father ever. If it's not, that will be Mary's issue to deal with. Right on, man. During the meal, Mary called me 4 times and my brother, mom, and sister-in-law 2 times each. So she was like stalker calling them. Before leaving the restaurant, I called Mary and arranged to meet her in the morning at my brother's house. She wanted to meet at our apartment, but I refused. I wanted to meet at a neutral spot with other people nearby. Good job, because like I said, in these situations, you always want witnesses. When she got there, I came right out and told her our marriage was over and I would be filing for an annulment. I also told her I wanted a paternity test. She lost it. She immediately broke down and got on her knees, swearing to me the child was mine. She said she knows based on the conception date. Remember that, folks. She said she knows based on the conception date that it's his child. I told her I wanted the test and said if the child is mine, I will be the best father. But if it's not, then I will have no role in the child's life. She cried and I sat with her for over an hour while she sobbed. I eventually asked her to leave and she did so begrudgingly. On Monday, things got weird. Now listen to this. At around 10 a.m., I got a voicemail message from Mary's boss. Call him Tony. Tony is a 40-something guy with a wife and 3 teenage kids. In the message, Tony said Mary told him about our situation, and he wanted to encourage me not to give up on the marriage, as infidelity happened early in his marriage, and it survived and has thrived. Isn't that weird that this guy called him? He said he'd really like to meet and talk with me about this as he could help me through the situation. This was weird, really weird. Up to that point, I had seen him just a few times, and it was always the customary, "Hi, how are you?" talk. That's a big red flag that this guy is calling him on a personal matter like that. Very out of the ordinary. I let it go and didn't plan to call him back. Then a few hours later, I get another message from him. This time he sounded exasperated and nervous. I wonder why Tony's nervous. He said, "Hey man, it's Tony again. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, and I don't blame you, but I'd like to explain what happened and assure you it meant nothing to either of us. Mary loves you and I love my wife. Call me back. I know we can work this out." And the OP Marvin here says, "What the F? That POS was the AP. The affair partner was Tony." I was so angry and rage filled, I had to take the rest of the day off. I mean, you can understand why this guy is so upset. First of all, his wife cheats on him. She's pregnant, very likely with another guy, and then she won't tell him who the guy is, and then he finds out the guy is her boss. Oh my gosh. Later that evening, I got another message from Tony. His tone was desperate this time. He said, "Call me, man. I know we can work something out between the three of us to save our marriages." Now, what was this guy going for here? Was he going to bribe them, pay them off? I, of course, didn't call him. What an idiot. Later on that night, I got a call from one of Mary's cousins. Call him Kevin. Kevin and I have become good friends over the past few years. I answered, and he asked me to tell him what's going on, as everyone in the family is going bonkers over you leaving Mary. I gave Kevin all the dirty details, and he couldn't believe it. He said, "Wow, the rest of the family doesn't know this. Everyone assumes you just up and left Mary because she's pregnant. They think you're a monster when it's actually Mary." You see what I'm talking about? How they will spin the story if you don't get your story out front, get the truth out front. They will go in there and spin it and make you look bad. And that's what's happened here. Throughout the evening, I continued getting calls and texts from Mary. I could tell she was in a very fragile state. She begged me to call her back and just talk, as she said she needed me desperately. She said she needed me to help her through the terrible situation she created. Of course, she needed her nice guy, her rock, to be there as her shoulder to cry on and her comforter. Don't do it, mister. I didn't respond, as I was totally disgusted with her. On Tuesday, I didn't hear from Mary at all. Then on Wednesday evening, she left me a voicemail. In a groggy and somber voice, she said, "I lost the baby." She asked if I could come over and comfort her, as she felt totally gutted. At that moment, I wanted nothing more to go over there and hold her tight, but decided it was not a good idea. Smart, smart. You didn't want to do that. Also, my attorney advised me not to have any contact with her without a witness. I'm really feeling awful, and I'm second guessing my actions now. I still love Mary and think about her constantly. I just want to go back to the way things were before. Now listen to what he says next. He says, "I almost wish she never told me about the affair, even if the baby wasn't mine." What are you talking about, mister? Think about what you just said. You wish she never told you about the affair, even if the baby wasn't yours? You were going to raise another man's baby, and very likely this woman would have went back and cheated on it with this same guy again and again and again. Think about what you're saying. I know I'll never find someone like her again. What do you think I should do? Marvin. So that was his original post. And now we're going to take a look at a few responses from the community. But before we do, I want to encourage you, if you're liking what you hear, hit that like button. That'll move this video way up on the YouTube algorithm and get it seen by people all over the world. Now, let's take a look at those responses. The first one's from a woman. She said, "Did you ever find out whose baby it was? How did she lose the baby? Is she still working at the same company for the same boss? You really need to provide this information to give us the full picture. Based on the info you provided, I think you should move forward with the annulment. Cheating is a no-go zone for me, especially as a newlywed." The next one's from a guy. He says, "Marvin, I hate to break this to you, but your wife has been nailing her boss for months. Do you really believe they only did it twice on successive days, then called it off? Wise up, man. Things don't happen like that in real life. The truth is she got impregnated with this high-value man and wanted her young, nice guy husband to raise the kid and be a great father. End it, man." Next, another response here from a woman. She says, "I work in HR for a large company, and this sounds like a clear-cut case of workplace harassment by a boss to a subordinate. Has she reported this to HR? Have you reported this to HR? His calls to you were totally inappropriate. I can tell you in my company, he would first be put on paid leave and then brought back and terminated. Good luck." And then finally, another response here from a guy. He says, "This woman sounds all kinds of crazy, a definite psycho. What kind of woman has a celebratory dinner with her husband to announce her pregnancy, only to tell him later that night she had an affair? That's just cruel, man. This woman doesn't give a damn about you. She thinks you're a sure thing and she can do anything to you. Get out of this mess now." I think all of these responses were spot on. I agree with all of these responders and what they said. I think they hit the nail on the head with their responses. Now for a series of updates, and he's got one update and then a final update. Here's the update, and this was from May 9th of 2019, so about 2 months after his post. He says, "Hello everyone, I'm back here to give you an update on my situation. First, thank you all for the responses. I got over 100 replies and the advice is helping me shape my response and motivate me forward. I'm still not divorced, or should I say annulled yet, but it should happen within the next 45 days. Since my last update, a lot has happened and some new details of my wife's affair have come to light." Now listen to these details, folks. Where do I start? Remember Kevin from my original post? He is the cousin of Mary who I've become good friends with. His mom is Mary's maternal aunt. She gets all the details directly from Mary's mom, who then tells Kevin, who then tells me. Of course, they don't know this, so Kevin is giving him all the straight skinny on what's going on. According to Kevin, Mary reported Tony, her boss, to HR. He was fired after an investigation. According to Kevin, the affair didn't start and end before Christmas, like Mary said. It started the week before Thanksgiving and continued right up until the time Mary discovered she was pregnant, which was just a couple of weeks before she broke the news to me. So she had been having this affair with her boss for something like 3 months, not 2 days like she told this guy. On top of that, Mary didn't lose the baby. She actually had a procedure. According to Kevin, she was pressured by Tony to do so after Mary revealed to him that she told me about the affair and pregnancy and that I was divorcing her. Tony was angry at her, as their plan was she wasn't to tell anyone. Apparently, she became overwhelmed with guilt and decided to tell me. According to Kevin, Mary told her mom she thought I would forgive her for the affair and that we could move forward as a happy family. You see what I mean? On how they view these nice guys as a sure thing, kind of like a father figure. He's always going to be there for me. Well, thankfully, this guy wised up. He says, "What the F? This woman has absolutely no respect for me." Kevin said that Mary knew the baby was Tony's based on the conception date. Now, remember, before she told the OP, she told Marvin that based on the conception date, it was his, even though she told me the same thing. As I stated at the beginning of this update, Tony has been fired, and word is his wife is divorcing him. Also, according to Kevin, Mary has filed a civil suit against her company and against Tony for a hostile work environment. Kevin says she's still working there, though. Not sure how that's possible, but apparently it is. That's all I have for now. I'll update again after the divorce is final. So that was his initial update, and now we're going to go and take a look at his final update so we can see how this whole story turned out. And this is from September 29th of 2019, so nearly 5 months after that update, he puts out his final update. I said I'd come back when the annulment was finalized, so here I am. I may seem overjoyed, but actually I'm feeling a sense of relief, not happiness. In spite of all the lies and deceitfulness, Mary initially would not mutually agree to annul the marriage, which meant the case could have drawn out for over a year or more. According to her cousin Kevin, her parents and sister intervened and explained to her if she drags out the proceedings, all of her dirty laundry would come out in court. Mary finally came to her senses and agreed to the annulment, and it was finalized 2 weeks ago. Good job, guy. You got out of that unscathed. Even though we are now divorced, Mary is still trying to get me back. She leaves me text messages and voicemails multiple times per week and has offered me everything from a one-sided open marriage to sharing the settlements with me that she got from her company and from her lover. So this woman got money. According to Kevin, she settled for something around $100,000 from each party and netted somewhere around $150,000. So man, that Tony, just to get a little young piece there, man, he ended up paying through the nose $100,000. Wow. And lost his job. I've never responded to her, and according to Kevin, it is driving her crazy. She's obsessed with getting me back. She's told her family that it's her goal, and she knows eventually we will be together again. He says, "Fat chance, honey. That ain't happening." And I gave him a thumbs up for that because he needs to stay strong. That's my story, at least for now. Thank you all for your input. It really reassured me I was doing the right thing. Hopefully all the newly married men on here learn something from my experience and can avoid something like this in your relationship, Marvin. So that's his story. And as you can see, this was a good guy, a nice guy. And thank goodness he had his brother there with him and also his parents that gave him the strength to move forward and pursue the annulment. Because I think if this guy was left to his own devices, he probably would have forgave his wife. He very likely would have had, the baby with her and raised it as his own. And then he would have been in for a life of just torture going forward, because not only would he be raising another man's child, but she would be out cheating on him, likely with the same guy. She probably would have continued cheating with this Tony. But in the end, he did the right thing. He took immediate action. He got the annulment, and hopefully he's a stronger guy now and can go on and lead a very successful life. So those are my thoughts. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? How do you think he handled the situation? Tell us about it in the comments. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you on the